Okay, so there's a crisis unfolding in Iran right now. And the one thing that everyone seems to agree on is that this time it's different. The walls are really starting to close in. We're on day 9. 9 days since the streets in Iran started to boil over again. It's just a number, but it kind of hangs in the air, you know? It sets this incredibly tense tone for everything we're about to talk about. Look, this isn't just another round of protests. Something feels fundamentally different. There's this heavy, serious weight to what's happening. And believe me, everyone, both inside and outside Iran, is sitting up and paying very close attention. I mean, for the first time in a long, long time, you're seeing intelligence agencies completely change their tune. They're not talking about this being manageable anymore. When you see an assessment like this one from Israeli intelligence, calling it a serious and credible threat to the regime itself, wow, that's them saying this could actually be it, an existential crisis. And that feeling is apparently mirrored right inside Tehran. The conversation at the highest levels, it's not about reform or control anymore. We're hearing the discussion has shifted to one thing, and one thing only: survival. So the big question is, how did we get here, right? Well, this whole thing didn't kick off because of some big ideological debate or a political scandal. Nope. This started with something much more basic: money. Or to be more precise, the moment the money just ran out. And the speed of it all, it was just staggering. It all kicks off on January 4th, 2026. The currency, the rial, completely collapses. And almost immediately, the merchants in Tehran's Grand Bazaar, the very heart of the country's economy, they just shut their doors, go on strike. And from there, it was like a spark hitting dry tinder. Those strikes spill out onto the streets and just spread like wildfire. And just to give you an idea of the scale here, we're talking about confirmed demonstrations in at least 108 towns and cities. 108. This is not just a problem in the capital anymore. This is a full-blown nationwide movement. Okay, but to really get why this time is so much more dangerous, we have to look beyond that initial spark. We've got to talk about the fuel that's been feeding this fire for years. And that fuel, it's a system that is, for all intents and purposes, completely and utterly broken. Think back to the protests in 2019 over fuel prices, or the Masa Amini protests in 2022. Those were massive for sure, but they were largely emotional reactions to specific events. This is different. This isn't about one bad decision or one tragic event. This is about the total failure of the entire economic system. The anger isn't just immediate, it's deep, it's structural. And there are so many reasons why. You've got crippling international sanctions that have just strangled any real revenue. You've got years of the state pouring money into regional conflicts, draining its own coffers. Then you throw in the 2025 war with Israel and U.S. strikes. That just pushed the whole system to the brink. And for the average person, it means daily life is a struggle. Water shortages, constant power outages, choking pollution. It's a pressure cooker. But here's the kicker. This quote, it's reportedly a private admission from senior Iranian officials. And what they're saying is absolutely stunning. They're basically admitting, we don't have a plan. They see no realistic path to stabilize the economy anytime soon. They know they're trapped. And that's a terrifying admission. All right, so that brings us to where we are now. You've got this broken system, this deep anger, and now the regime is getting squeezed, hard, from two sides at once. You've got escalating violence on the streets at home, and at the same time, intense, direct pressure coming from the outside. And the human cost is already tragic. We have confirmations of at least 41 people killed in clashes so far. Let's be really clear. This is not a peaceful demonstration anymore, not by a long shot. Because what we're seeing now is a very, very dangerous new phase. There's footage coming out showing protesters who have gotten their hands on weapons, some reportedly taken from security guards. And they are not just defending themselves. They are actively attacking security forces. This isn't just protest anymore. This is escalating towards something that looks a lot more like an insurgency. And while all that chaos is happening on the streets, the walls are closing in from the outside too. Just think about this. The U.S. manages to capture Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. He's one of Iran's closest allies. That sent an absolute shockwave through Tehran. The message couldn't have been clearer. No regime is safe, no one is untouchable. And then, as if that wasn't enough, the U.S. State Department's Persian language account puts out this message. President Trump is a man of action. If you didn't know, now you know. I mean, come on, that is not subtle diplomacy. That's a direct, public, in-your-face warning to the leadership in Tehran. It's basically saying, we're watching and we are ready to move. So you've got this immense pressure building from the inside and the outside. The question becomes, what's the tipping point? What's the thing that makes it all break? Well, that's what we're going to look at now. The fear that's starting to take hold at the very top and what everyone is watching for next. And get this, there's intelligence floating around that the supreme leader himself, Khamenei, has a contingency plan ready, an escape plan to get out of Tehran, maybe to Moscow. Now, just the fact that a plan like that even exists, that tells you everything you need to know about the level of fear. It shows a real belief that the entire system could just fracture. Which brings us to probably the single most important question in all of this, the one question that could decide everything. Will the army defect? You see, the regime's power, at the end of the day, rests on the loyalty of its military. That's the final backstop. The moment the army's loyalty starts to crack, well, that's when things can start to accelerate, and fast. But this leads to a really dark and ominous possibility. A cornered animal is a dangerous one, right? If the regime feels like it's truly losing control, that it's backed into a corner, it might not just go quietly. It might lash out. And that's the thing to remember here. This quote says it all. Regimes don't go quietly. History shows us this again and again. So as the walls keep closing in, the big, terrifying question isn't just if the regime will fall, but what it's willing to do on its way down.